tips for the first day of class and the first week of class workshop. I see we have quite a lot of faculty member here, and like we've established a couple of students as well, which is great. Dominique or Priscilla, would you like to say hello?
Sure, I'll dive in. Hi, my name is Priscilla Stadler. I'm from the LaGuardia Center for Teaching and Learning, which is focused primarily on supporting faculty through professional development, but we also do work with students and peer mentors as well. So, and my colleague Oscar Cortez is here with me, co-leading, and he's also the man in control of all the tech stuff. So we just want to welcome you to this session that's led by your colleagues, Dominique Zino from the English department and Jessica Boehman from the Humanities department. They developed this workshop and have put together some really great materials for you. We will be recording today's session so that those that couldn't attend will have access to it afterwards on the CTL's YouTube channel, and we'll hand it over to them, to Dominique and Jessica in just a second. But before that, because there's so many of us, I just want to request that you please mute yourself. Turn your mic off, because it can be really distracting when we hear noises that we're not expecting to hear. And then if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to type them into the chat. We'll be paying attention to that, so we will address all your concerns. Okay, I'm going to hand it over now to Dominique and Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's obviously a really busy time, and I know some people just finished teaching during fall 2, and now we're all sort of immediately beginning to, or continuing to prepare for spring 1. So it's a transitional moment, but we're really glad that we could have this conversation right now as we're all planning and thinking and sort of imagining what next week is going to be like. So I just shared the agenda for today's session in the chat. If you want to open that, you will see what our plan is. And I'm also just going to share my screen. And in just a moment, we're going to move into the first segment of the session for today. So we just want to talk about some of the things that you might encounter during the first week. And we hope that these scenarios that we created will feel familiar to you. These are things that we've experienced ourselves. And since we have some students here, it'll be especially interesting to have a couple of breakout rooms that include students, because I think you can weigh in on what it's like to be a student during the first week of class. Jessica and I will offer some things to think about and materials you might want to prepare from today leading up until the first week to send to students in advance, or ways to refine materials that you already have. We'll discuss that. And I will also just sort of briefly offer a first day narrative that I created as part of a different faculty development workshop, as an example of something that helped me to think through what my first day would look like and feel like. So that's something we'll invite you to consider doing. And then we'll devote the second half of the session to a large group discussion. And we have a notes document that we'll be using as we listen to you and hear your suggestions and your questions. And then that document, along with all of the materials from this workshop, will be available to you in a folder of materials. So we will be sure to send that in the chat as we get to the second half of the session, especially, and then we'll also follow up with you via email and make sure that you get copies of these materials for you to refer back to. So I think without further ado, we're going to move into the first segment, which is with your small group in a breakout room to consider one of the first day scenarios that we've created. So Oscar is going to randomly assign all of you to a breakout room. And then if you open the document in the first part of the agenda, and I'll also include this in the chat, you will see your group number and the scenario for your group. So this is under a few common first week scenarios. And
so are we good to go?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna open up the breakout session. So we'll see you all in a bit. Okay.
Okay, it looks like we've got pretty much everybody back.
Yeah. I think so.
Yes, we have everyone back.
Great, excellent. So we just wanted to take a couple of minutes to discuss some of the things that you came up with in relation to these scenarios. I will share my screen with the notes that a few of the groups took, but if anyone wants to either elaborate on something that you might have noted down or add something in that you didn't get to include in the document yet, we'd love to hear anything that you came up with. Or if you think, there's something you want to add to the scenarios that you've seen during the first week, that would also be great.
Yeah, I got something to say.
Okay, Adolfo, go for it.
Yeah, if anybody's taking any prerequisites, get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. If you can't use the lab, use your classmates, and yeah, that's all. Because we were just given a scenario, stuff like that, and those are like, they require a lot of hours. They require you being there. And they require you getting that knowledge. So yeah, it's good to stay on top of those prerequisites. That's all.
Thank you.
That's a good tip, Adolfo. And I would add to that for any other students who are here is get to know your professors and go into office hours. That's something that they never tell you. That's kind of like the secret to college. All right, don't be afraid of getting to know your professors, because if you're struggling and you know your professor, it's going to be a lot more easier to approach them and talk to them than if you feel like they're unapproachable. Their job is to teach you. Okay, so to that end, in my group, Dominique, we were all students in group 5. So I answered their questions. So let's hear from some of the other groups. Yes, Albert?
I think we had a little bit of problem with the breakup room. But anyway, we came out with what we do basically in the science department is that we have a syllabus ready. And that syllabus, I think I mentioned that to the group. And that's what we have to lay down exactly what the students have to do, at least read it very carefully and go through all the protocols that are involved in the course, how to teach the course. Being a chemistry professor, we have 2 components. The first one will be the lecture component, and the second one will be the lab component that the students have to do. And that's the most complicated one because the students first of all have to make sure that they understand what we call the data sheet, because they didn't do any hand-on experiment online. So therefore, I provide them with the data sheet, which came from all the things that I did, I collected from the lab. And then depending on that, they have to respond, they have to answer the questions on the lab sheet and return them to me and email them to me individually. And then I grade it and get it back to them again. And that's a very, very difficult one. We have about 10 labs to do in that chemistry class. So I have to explain it to them, be very supportive and discuss it with them. Again, somebody mentioned the office hour, which is very important in chemistry here. The students have to get together with me or email me or any kind of communication, conversation they can have with me so I can help them fill out those lab sheets. And it's a good way to support them. And I think that's one of the, from my perspective, my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Does anyone from group 2 want to say anything about what they took down here? There are a lot of great notes for this second scenario. I'm not sure. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I can start. I see if others want to jump in from group 2. We spoke about creating community and sort of like low stakes assignments from the beginning. We spoke about different kinds of activities that would encourage students to share something a little bit more personal, so that they are able to become comfortable in speaking to one another through the chat. Jasmine shared a very interesting activity, which is the first one, creating your own emoji, in a way to create a sense of community and then engage students in more subject-based matter conversations, as the case, the example we were given expressed, right? So the interesting thing was that we all came from different disciplines, and we all came to common themes in terms of creating this low stakes assignment. So I don't know if others want to share more.
Yeah, I think what building on what Pablo said, it was really about getting the students to feel comfortable with the professor as well as with each other, which is, also important about going to office hours. But when you feel a connection with people, you are more apt to be more involved. And I think Francina talked about that you can get students to kind of share their cameras without prompting them to do so, because they feel more comfortable. So if we're doing, before getting into content assignments, just really talk about them building a sense of community, as Pablo said.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jasmine and Pablo. Yeah, these are great notes here. And yeah, some really great strategies for sort of paying attention to students' comfort level. And I think, really staying flexible, it seems to be important in terms of, if you have a class where students are hesitant at first, like continually trying new things to get them to maybe feel a sense of connection to you, to each other, and kind of gradually come out of that shell. These are really great suggestions. Does anyone want to say anything else about? Yes, go ahead, Albert.
I just want to add to the creation of a sense of community, as Pablo mentioned it, to make the student feel comfortable and to share their knowledge, their experiences with the other students. The chat room is something I'm going to, in the past I had a lot of problems setting up the chat room, but I think I'm going to use it now. And also, so I'm learning from that. I have to learn that and know and master it to know how to use it. And then in addition to that, in the science component, we have what you call the tutoring room. Okay, we have the tutoring, which I included in the syllabus, so the student can do that. So we have all kinds of support system in the program to have them utilize them in a timely fashion. That's the problem. We have to use them in a timely fashion. We only have 12 weeks in the semester, and we have to, the problem with most of the students is that they procrastinate a little bit, and that's a problem. But if we can do this on a schedule, I think it will be very, very successful. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we wanted to move to just thinking about what we can do before meeting students in this week prior to the first day of class, to get to know them, and also to sort of give them some preview of what they might encounter in our courses, to learn a bit about their backgrounds or maybe even hobbies and interests, so that we can connect some of our course content to what they've experienced in the past and also to their prior learning in other courses. So Jessica and I just have a few things. If you turn back to the agenda on your end, you'll see in this next segment, we've included a couple of links to pre-semester surveys and other sorts of materials that you can share with students in advance. And I think Jessica is going to speak next about the video that she has created for some of her art classes to introduce students to herself and to the course. So Jessica, you want to share that?
Yeah, hi guys. I realized when I said hello to everybody at the beginning, I didn't tell you who I am. So I'm Jessica Boehman and I am in the Humanities department, but I teach art history and studio art courses. And so my brain gets, split in two between history and studio. And so I have to think about two different ways of presenting my classes and how each type of student is going to respond and the sort of thing that I need them to know. What I have started doing is making an introductory video that I put up on my class webpage, which I make an e-portfolio, but you could do something similar in Blackboard or whatever platform that you use, that students will hopefully watch before the first day of school. The idea is that I want them to feel like they know where to find everything and where to find me from the get-go. Okay, so there's none of this, where do I go? How do I find the links? What about homework? And I think there's quite a lot of anxiety on the part of students with not knowing how to contact their professors or whatnot. So I send out an email right at the beginning with a link to this video, ask the students to watch it before they come in. I'm just going to show you about 2 minutes of it. You guys can go back and watch it later. I've made it public so anybody can see my e-portfolio. I've also made a tips for succeeding in my course video that's directly below it if anybody wants to get ideas of how I've set that up. So like I said, I'm only going to show you just a second of that, maybe a minute or two. Okay, so I have my whole course set up in an e-portfolio and on a Blackboard, but is this going to share with my sound? That's the question. Let's see. Tell me if you guys can hear it right away, okay? Yes?
No, you'll have to go to share computer audio.
Okay, so let me stop sharing. Yep, okay. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I didn't know if I had been given. Hi, students, and welcome to the History of Design. We're going to be meeting once a week on Tuesdays. This is a history class that's required for most of you who are in this class. Probably the majority of you are fine arts majors or industrial design majors. So I'm here to welcome you. I hope we have a really great semester. I wanted to make just a quick welcome video for you so that you know what to expect from the very first moment of class and you can be set up to have healthy habits throughout the rest of the class, and you'll know exactly what I want of you. Okay, so my name is Dr. Boehman. I'm an artist and an art historian. You'll get to know me a lot better in the class, but this is my email if you guys need to contact me at any time. And I wanted to talk to you about the platforms we're using for class. So we actually have two platforms. The class Blackboard page, which you guys have probably already gone and looked up. Okay, it's available to you already. And we have an e-portfolio page, which has all the class content on it. And I'm going to just introduce you to both of those. So the very first thing that you should do is log into the class Blackboard and go to the Start Here tab, which is why I named it that, okay? This has my expectations and a description of asynchronous lectures and synchronous meetings. The link to the class e-portfolio site is right here. My email, information on office hours is all right here, okay? If you click on this link, it's going to take you to our class e-portfolio page where I have built up all of the information for the class. All the class lectures that you watch on your own time are here under the online class tab. All of your homework is here in a drop-down menu arranged by week. The class schedule is here, so you can look at that. The syllabus, information on your presentation, and a bunch of other resources that you may find useful. spent a lot of time putting this together, so I hope you get to know it really well, because you're going to be looking at this for every single class. Okay, so bookmark it if you have to, so you don't have to keep going back to the Blackboard page if you don't want to. Okay, I think that's enough to give you a sense. I also made like I said, a tips for succeeding in my course video. That's all going to be in that link that I sent to students in that very first email, along with a link to the very first session that we have together. Okay, so I don't know what other people do, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I have found that being as explicit as possible with my expectations to the students before class starts makes them feel more comfortable when they enter into the class, because they already have a sense of exactly what I'm expecting from them. As you see, what I did was I just simply put together a Google Slides presentation with screenshots of the different things I wanted them to see. And then I was able to record that with captions right through Zoom, so that they have a perfect understanding. But you very easily could do something like this with just sharing your screen or whatnot, as you record something. But I don't know if other people find something like this useful, but I'm making different ones for each of my classes. And of course, the ones that I make for my studio classes will be different, as the expectations are completely different. Are any questions about that? Yes, Priscilla.
Yeah, congratulations on making a really great welcome video. I'm wondering what you used to make it, and also how you did your captions. And I wanted to point out that your captions are excellent, and also that although enrollment for the college is down, enrollment of deaf students is up. So we need to think about how we're captioning videos and how we're making our materials accessible.
Okay, so what I did was I just recorded through Zoom. I have found in the end that that's the least glitchy. So I just log in, I share my screen, and then when I'm ready to go, I hit record. I record it to my computer. You could also record it to the cloud, but it takes longer to process, I find. So I just, it'll download right to my computer, and then I can put it wherever I want to put it. I have found that the easiest way to do it is to just run my classes through Google Slides, and Google Slides has a caption. When you go into present mode, you can hit the closed captions and it'll automatically generate captions based on speech. And they're actually pretty good, except for when it gets into like weird art terms or proper names or something like that. But I can see it happening live, so I can tell students, listen, this is actually how you spell this word, or I'll type it onto the screen if it's something that needs to be, if it needs to be very clear. But I'm trying to caption most of my videos and find ways of captioning my existing videos that don't have captions. But Priscilla's right. If you could try to be as inclusive as possible with any kind of content that you put up onto your pages, you're just going to be making it easier for all different types of students with different learning abilities.
And Jessica, did you say what platform? You said you did this on ePortfolio, but do you want to say any more about the how-tos of the video? There was a question from Gretel.
Oh, sorry, what platform? I recorded it through Zoom and using Google Slides for the presentation for the captions. So I just kept it simple because I already use Zoom. All the other platforms I have found very glitchy. This works great. I can share, record with my computer sound. And so if I want to show a clip of a video or something like that, it works just fine. Yeah.
Maybe we can make a how-to just based on your process, Jess, and make it available to everybody in the future, because it sounds like you've really streamlined. It can be very cumbersome to make captions and to make videos, but it sounds like you really streamlined the process, and I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, this is way I don't have to make captions at all. It just does it for me. So
Excellent.
if you guys are using any kind of visual presentation, Google Slides, when you hit the present, it'll just be in the bar at the bottom. You just hit the CC for closed captions and it'll pop up. Every once in a while it doesn't work, but most of the time it works. Dominique, did you want to share what you had to talk about now?
Yes, great. Thank you, Jessica. So I just shared in the chat the folder that I referenced at the beginning of the session that has our agenda for today, but also the email template that Jessica has used with her students, as well as a whole variety of other resources that you're welcome to adapt for your own courses. We will, as I said, send this out in a separate email after the session, but let us know if you have any problems accessing any of these files. So one of the things in that folder is something I will talk about super briefly now, and that is a survey that I send to students in my writing courses at the beginning of the semester. So I'm going to share my screen. So this survey just really helps me to get to know students before I see them at our first Zoom session. It also gives me a sense of the way that they think about writing, what experiences they've had, both positive and negative, how they think about the writing process. So a question like this one, do you ever imagine anyone reading your work while you're writing it? Sometimes tells me a lot about how a student thinks about writing. Sometimes I get super brief, like no answers, just one word. And then sometimes students really reveal a lot about their anxieties about writing maybe, or who they imagine writing to, or just questions that come up for them. So I know that we all, having multiple classes and sometimes many students in a class, have a lot of material to go through, but sometimes even the shortest of pre-course surveys can really help you to find your footing, I think, with a new group of students. And you can obviously adopt this for any subject matter, or you may want to simply send something out that asks students more about their hobbies or interests. And there's another version of a survey that's in the folder that we shared with you that offers some questions around that. And that can just be a way, as you're planning your first day, to help you to think about, okay, if these are my students' interests, or these are some experiences they have, or if you want to ask about, their work or in internship opportunities outside of the college, you can think about how to connect your course material explicitly to some of those things. And I think that can enhance the sense of connection the students feel to the course and to you and to each other. So certainly in the second half of this session, if you use anything like this, it would be great to hear about the types of questions that you ask, and what types of responses you've gotten, or maybe how your pre-semester student surveys have changed over time, if you've used these for a while. So that is one resource that I wanted to share. And then the other thing I wanted to offer is this idea of a first aid narrative. So in the session agenda, and I will paste the link to that again in the chat for anyone who's just joining us. On the second page, there's a sort of narrative that I wrote out as I imagine my first day of class this semester. The focus of this narrative is a little bit different than a lesson plan. The idea here is to be thinking not only about what I want to tell students about my syllabus and the course and how their grade will be calculated, or what our writing assignments will be, but to really help them to feel more of a connection to the material. And this was an exercise that I completed for a faculty development seminar that some of you may have taken who are in this workshop today about growth mindset. And CUNY will be offering that workshop again this summer, so you may see some emails about that. But I've linked to some of the premises about sort of growth mindset and creating a sense of belonging in case you're curious about those concepts. So just to look at this really quickly, I won't read through it, but some of the things that I've included here that might not appear on a traditional lesson plan are, imagining logging into the Zoom early, which for me, as someone who's always packing my days, is a really important thing for me to anticipate doing. So logging in 10 minutes early, and thinking about how I'm going to use the information that I may have gotten from the pre-course survey, and from any other resources that are available to me, like going into C2C, which is the advising portal, and the college recently had a workshop about how to use that. If anyone has questions about that, we can certainly come back to using C2C. Jessica mentioned e-portfolios. If I'm teaching students who are beyond their first semester, they may have an e-portfolio that I could look at to get to know them, maybe to see a picture of them. So all of these things sort of help to ground me in, who this group of students is and what I might expect. And these are some of the things I'm thinking about as I log into the Zoom early and I go back to responses to surveys and other notes I may have taken. And then a couple other things that might not appear on a traditional lesson plan, but that I might be thinking about during this session are things like community rules. So rather than just sort of asking students to read the policies on my syllabus, I might go a step further and say, okay, based on these formal policies like attendance, like, having your camera on or off, like pluralism, what is this going to mean for us? How do we want to act together every time we log into this Zoom? So we sort of decide on more approachable language that we're going to use and create our own set of community rules. And this can be a chance for the students to really voice their impressions of my policies, but also to add to them and to interpret them in ways that make sense to them. So that might be something else that I would try during a first day session, and that I would be thinking through in advance as I write this kind of narrative. So I want to just offer that as a possibility, something that you might think about doing this week as you anticipate your first day. And I think maybe that can help us to transition into this second half of the workshop where we get to hear from more of you and exchange some ideas about what the first day will look like for you. So in this part of the session, we have another note-taking document. I realize this is a lot of links and a lot of documents, and we're asking you to pay attention to a lot of things. But we will be listening to you as you maybe offer your own ideas or suggestions, and we'll be cataloging them in this document so that we all have access to them later. So as we transition into this next part, some of the questions that we wanted to discuss together are what kind of environment, what's the kind of environment that you hope to create on the first day of your class? How will you invite students into the community of your course? These are some questions that were in the workshop description. What types of habits do you want to introduce and reinforce throughout the first few weeks of the semester? Also, how might you communicate with students before the first day? And then a couple of other maybe more concrete questions. How might you use the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes of your class? What are the ways that you can sort of set the tone in those first 5 minutes and last 5 minutes that might be meaningful? And then how do you want students to feel when they leave this first class session? That's something else that we might want you to consider. And any other questions that you might have, these are just some organizing questions from the agenda that you might think about as we sort of enter into this next part of the workshop. And I'm also going to put these questions in the chat. So maybe as we pass the floor to all of you, maybe we can just give people a minute or two of silence to sort of process this. And then again, as people have things they want to share, we will be putting this in the collaborative note-taking document.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we do that, that one of the reasons we wanted to have this workshop is because we are missing this ability to walk down the hall and talk to our fellow professors and get ideas. That's one of the most challenging things for me about this pandemic online learning situation, is that we're working in our own bubble. And sometimes the very best thing is encountering other people on campus or walking around and being able to say, hey, what are you doing for this class? Or what do you do when this happens? And you get ideas from people who are not in your discipline. And so that's what we were hoping for in the second session, or excuse me, the second half of the session, was to give everybody a chance to talk to each other so we could get ideas from each other and feel like we're back on campus a little bit, to have that sort of community that we're hoping to build in our own classes. I'm happy to hear anybody's ideas, or from the students who are here, what you hope would happen on the first day of classes to make you feel welcome. It'd be great to have your point of view as well. Please don't be shy. Yes, Albert?
I have a problem. I'm a little bit confused about, I'm asking Priscilla, could you go over the, is it a C2C? Tell me approximately what it means. I have a problem. Anybody can help me doing that, clarify that in my mind. I will be very, very immensely grateful.
Sure, although I'm probably not the best person to describe it, as I think I don't know as much about it as some of our faculty members here. So, and I was unfortunately not able to go to the workshop that they had the other day. Does somebody want to jump in here who's familiar with C2C? And thank you, Zoya, for saying that there is a recording.
Thank you.
C2C is a platform that you can log in and have direct contact with your students. It'll allow you to access all sorts of information about them. You can put in requests to their advisors. If they're having difficulty, you can look at their degree works. You can, like I said, you can message them directly. So you can access that through the faculty portal. Albert, log in with your credentials, and then you'll see your students listed by class.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So how about I start off with a simple question, which is, what are some of the things that you guys do on the very first day to kind of get students excited about your class and feeling like they're ready to learn whatever particular topic that you are teaching in your course? Jasmine?
I like to share with them, especially in the 100 class, just how I fell into the field of therapeutic recreation. And a lot of them wind up feeling the same. Like it's a non-candidacy program, and then where some of the candidacy programs I didn't do well in, and then switched to this program and fell in love with my career and realized it was for me. So a lot of them wind up saying, "Oh my God, I remember applying for candidacy and feeling disappointed, and then what was my alternate plan that you learn about, and picking an alternate plan and then winding up being very happy." So they feel that kind of a connection, and then other students jump in, and then we can have like a group discussion. So I try to do that before going over the syllabus. And my next thing is I'm really big on going over the syllabus so that if they have questions, that I'm going through everything line by line, because I find that they're not necessarily going to look at it as thoroughly throughout the semester because they're overwhelmed with all their other courses. They're taking math, they're taking science, they're taking media and psychology and English, and they're just trying to keep up. So they ask a lot of questions because I literally read everything word for word the first day of class. It's time consuming, but I do find the students have been receptive to it and they ask a lot of questions.
I really like, Jasmine, how you take the time to let the students know how you're similar to them. Because I find that students are often looking for their faculty members to be sorts of mentors, and they don't know that you can be that to them until they recognize that you are not that different from they are. And so when they see that, I think it makes them feel really comfortable. So I really like that. Milena has her hand up. Milena, would you like to speak?
Hello, I'm not putting my camera on because I have very bad connection where I am now,
Okay.
but just excuse me. I usually try to put my camera on and I said this to students. So this is the first thing I say when I'm in class with the students.
We can hear you fine. So
okay, in math, you know, I just use the first day of classes to do things to lower down the anxiety for the students to be in the class. It depends, you know, even if you have like a very advanced math class or a very like this first semester class, I just try to explain everything super clear of what they should expect, and that they go away with the idea that if they have a question, I'm going to help them out. So I try to develop, like I tell them about myself. I ask them about what they have, what idea they have of the course they're going to start taking. So if it's a stats, I start asking them, you know, what comes to your mind when you think about the word statistics, right? Or if you are in differential equations, which is the last course engineering students needs to take, I'll do the same. And then I just kind of like open up the floor for them to be able to feel that I'm just another person there, that I'm doing my best. I explain my background, that I've done a PhD or that I have experience teaching for many years. So they know that if I'm there, it's because I have everything that they need to rely on me. So if they have questions academically, they'll be able to reach me out, that I won't let them down, you know, kind of like a contract kind of thing. And since we're teaching remotely, I do something which is I have like a short paragraph where I don't remember the wording now because I wasn't teaching last semester, but it's something like they say, you know, I, Milena Cuellar, I'm a student in a class, blah, 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 semester, blah, 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 and I'm going to, it's kind of like a compromise to go into class, to communicate with my professor, to respect others in the class, to do all the work that I'm going to present, just the work that I'm doing myself, you know, kind of like have them do that, but I ask them to do it handwritten. So they have to send me that. And that's twofold. One is to be able for them to be able to kind of like write something of what the kind of like simple commitment to the class, like a contract. And then at the same time, I know their handwriting, so they don't go and buy the math exams and then, you know, put them up, because I had the experience of things like that the students just get so other people to do it for them. And so I get them to know. So I say to them, I'm going to try to get you to know even your handwriting, right? Because that's the closest personal thing that I can get to know them now, and their voice or maybe their face. And that's it. So it's kind of like a very personal kind of like first day of class with them.
you're making them each feel like individuals. I really like that. Pablo, you have your hand up. Would you like to add?
Yeah, I teach a first year seminar course in education, and one thing that Milena mentioned that stood out to me is to lower students' anxieties. In the first day of class, one thing that I have found in the past 2 semesters, students come to class very overwhelmed by how many different applications they have to use. I try to open the floor to have them express their challenges and things that they're coming across. a lot of the students are sharing, oh, my professor is using email, my other professor is using Zoom, my other professor is using Blackboard, Collaborate. So it's challenging to help them navigate that, but I give them the space for them to articulate those challenges. And I try to connect those to resources or strategies for them to be able to accomplish everything they need to accomplish. So in the first day of the first week of the semester, I normally go over the syllabus and how to read the syllabus, have a to-do list for your everyday tasks, have a planner, whether it's on your phone or something to write on. So I try to combine those strategies with challenges that they are coming across. But that's one thing that I always come across. Students are overwhelmed by how many different tools all of us are using. And sometimes that's problematic. I don't know how to navigate that. But I find that creating that space for them to talk about it, and then even them helping each other becomes very helpful, because in many times students are saying, oh, you're taking that math class with this professor, I'm taking that too, or I'm taking this other class, how's that going? And that kind of interaction in the class, I think helps my students create a community and realize that they're not alone. So that's one thing I wanted to share.
I think, and one other thing is making sure, because each professor is doing something differently, don't be afraid to repeat that information in the first couple of weeks and have it in a place that's easily accessible for them to find. Because my next door neighbor is a grown man and he just started back at school. You know what he told me? He said, each professor has got a different platform and it's so confusing. And that's when I came back and made that video to show them exactly how to do it. I was like, if a full, grown adult, a father is having difficulty with this, then students who are new to college are going to be confused as well. So what can I do to kind of sidestep that right from the beginning?
And related to what Pablo was just sharing, I think like helping students to conceptualize what's the big picture for the semester in terms of how many different platforms they have to use, when they need to be online, when they can be offline, like that is so helpful. And I mean, the first year seminar in particular is like a great source of support for students. There's one resource in the folder also that even if you're not teaching a first year seminar class, you may want to share with students. I just shared, I'm sharing my screen here so you can see this. So feel free to adapt this in whatever way you'd like, but you might want to give your students some sort of weekly schedule document that they can fill in themselves, right? So that they can start to coordinate, okay, where do I need to be for this class? What do I want to remember? How do I contact my professor? This